Last month, we taped the 10th episode of C-Suite on Your Street. Since our first episode, we've had a diverse group of guests come on and discuss a wide range of business topics, from marketing strategies to tips for staffing your business, and even ways to promote employee health. Just in case you've missed any of the first 10 episodes, let's take a look back at some of the highlights of what we've covered so far. As a new show, we started off by sharing resources that are at your disposal to move your business forward. In the following clips, we gain insights into how the Small Business Development Centers and the City of Laurel's Department of Economic and Community can enrich your business toolkit. So far you've told us about the pre-venture client profile, the profile, once again, that has not yet started a business but is conceptualizing the business, and how you can help, or how the SBDC can help them set up the structure of their business, whether it's the EIN, the employee identification number, the business structure that they want to have, whether it's a sole proprietorship, an LLC, or something else. You've told us about the startup client profile, the business that has been in business for up to a year, and the different types of marketing information that the SBDC provides, among other things. The third profile, I think, is the experience profile, and this is the business that has been in business for more than a year. Tell us specifically how the SBDC can help these business owners.
Well, usually it's the veteran business owner, and I would say 2 years. That's because the normal bank would say you're a veteran because they have 2 years, 1 year to compare against the next. And usually, a lot of times when they're at that 2-year point, they get kind of stuck sometimes, or even at the 5-year point, they can get stuck. And what happens is they're not actually marketing their business. And it comes back to you got to be the entrepreneur, and you got to hire the right people to get the business going. So you cannot be all things to the business. It's just impossible for you to do that. So at that particular stage, what kind of marketing are you doing? Do you have a good business plan? Do you have a good capability statement? So a lot of people, when they start their business, they start a business plan and they forget about it. That's a moving animal. You have changes every year. Every time you get a new client, every time you have a downfall in your business, that changes your business plan, because you got to change the focus to counter for those things that are coming at you.
And I work with the Department of Economic Community Development. So in my department, we oversee the economic development incentive programs. Businesses will also come in for any planning and zoning needs. And then I'm there as well just to support them and kind of be their voice for the city, so I can point them in the right direction if they're looking to locate into the city or they are a business owner in the city already.
Okay. So why don't we use that as an opportunity to talk more about the incentive programs that the City of Laurel does have. I think there are 3 key ones that you and I have talked about recently, so we can just go down one by one.
Okay.
So let's talk first about the Main Street Relocation Grant.
So that's going to be for businesses that are looking to move to our Main Street area, and that can be a new startup business or a business that's relocating from another space. And that's up to $10,000 of reimbursement funds that can be used to redo the interior of a property.
Now, there's also the Main Street Facade Grant. How does that work, and what are some success stories?
So for that, it's for the exterior of the property, and it's for the storefront. So it's to help improve the look of the whole Main Street, and as well as preserve our historic properties down there. And that's up to $5,000 for reimbursement funds, and that's going to be for if you need a new front door, windows, if you need to paint the exterior, any lighting that's attached. So those type of expenses. And you can take a walk down Main Street and look at some of the newer facades that have been painted or new canopies. And those are some of our success stories down there.
Okay, great, great. And then the third one is the Commercial Corridor Incentive Program. How does this particular program work?
So that's for our Route 1 commercial corridor, and that's more for real estate development or large developers. And it's to encourage them to redevelop areas along that commercial corridor. And that's for like where our larger shopping centers are located. So that's for larger developments. And that's going to include tax credits, expedited site plan review, as well as a couple of other incentives.
In these next clips, we had experts come on to discuss ways to market your business, including how to define your client profile, tips for social media marketing, and information from membership organizations that can help spread the word about your business.
If you're a business owner out there saying to yourself, who is my audience? You have to start building this customer profile. And you start with demographics.
Right.
What are their ages? What are their income? Are they married? Are they single? That's the first one. The second one is the geographics. Where are they located? I've had many clients that say, look, I want to advertise on this big radio station, but they're working in a hair salon that only reaches about a 5-mile radius. So a big mistake among many advertisers is that they're advertising to a market, they're spending advertising resources to a market that's never going to come to their shop. So if I'm a small company and I'm trying to geographic target, I want to make sure I'm reaching that 5-mile radius, which may not be mass media. It may be direct mail or some other way. Right. And then psychographic, that's more about the lifestyle. How does this person view life? What are their beliefs, their cultures, and so forth? That information is a little harder to get, but once you get those three together, the demographics, the geographics, and the lifestyle, the psychographics, you build a profile where you can walk into a room almost and just say, look, that is my customer.
So with social media, your B2B or B2C are really going to determine what platforms you use, how you use them, and when you use them. So a B2B company, a company that works to service other businesses, like my company, for example. All of my customers are businesses. I don't have any homeowners as customers. Right. So our content is going to be focused on how we can help other businesses. It's going to be focused on content during the workday when they're at their computer. When a B2C company, a car dealership, for example, they're mostly selling to the consumer. They're going to want to post content that appeals to people's consumer side, as well as at times of the day when people are not focused on business, but are then focused on their personal needs. Okay. I might be looking for a car at my lunch break or at home in the evening, not necessarily at 10 a.m.
Okay, so when we talk about business to business, like you said, companies that work primarily with other businesses, would you say that LinkedIn is the better of the three platforms between LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook? Would LinkedIn be the better platform to focus on for B2B, or would you say something else?
I normally recommend people start with LinkedIn if they're a B2B company. The only caveat is that Facebook is the largest platform out there. So no matter who you are and what you're marketing, I say you have to be using Facebook these days. Okay.
And if your primary audience is consumers, which platform would you say would be the better one of the three?
So that would be a combination of Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Again, everyone should be on Facebook. The next step would be LinkedIn for business and Instagram for consumer.
Okay. Now, as far as including social media as part of your marketing portfolio, as we talked about before, you know, it's not necessarily going to be equal for all companies. So one company may use social media as its predominant marketing portfolio, whereas another company may not. So how would a company be able to determine how long or how much social media should represent as part of their overall marketing portfolio, as opposed to, say, newsletters or mailers or something else?
Yeah, that really comes down to the individual company and what their goals are. So just like any other form of marketing, you have to do a dive into social media and how it's going to benefit you, what your goals are, and then find the right amount to use for your overall company, for your specific goal. And most companies are doing advertising campaigns for the whole year, for the month, for a single promotion. So each platform, each type of marketing, online, offline, are all going to be used different for all of those different campaigns. So for each campaign, you have to start from the top and work down to figure out which marketing channels are going to be the best ones for it.
Tell us how being a member of the Lower Board of Trade over those years helped your business.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, people like to do business with those who they know, like, and trust. When you join a business like the Laurel Board of Trade that has members that are other businesses, then those other businesses get to be people that get to know you. And these personal relationships help to, when these individuals have a need for a service, and in my case it was printing, they would come to me for business cards, letterhead, forms, whatever the printing need was. And that helped me grow my business.
Right.
And these intrapersonal relationships become very important.
Right.
And then they know that I know them, they become my friends, and they're also my customer. So they're going to know that they're going to get a quality job.
Right.
And
Excellent.
that's
Very
how
good.
that works.
Very good. So over the years of your being involved with the Laurel Board of Trade, it just helped you to build your network, to build trust, not only you having trust with other members, but vice versa.
Exactly.
And that just
Works
helps,
both ways.
It just kind of snowballs, and that's how you build your network and grow your business and establish that trust and rapport that's very important.
Now, in terms of how, other ways that we can help businesses get out their message and give them more exposure, we have our events, which I've already mentioned, and we have small events from where it's a seminar with 15 or 20 businesses to large events where we'll have 2 or 3 keynote speakers, and there'll be 300 people in the room. And we have, in our smaller events, we have a lot of our businesses that are coming, and they're the speakers. They're the ones that are conducting the seminars, and they're providing the training to our businesses, and they're getting exposure there. Other times at those bigger events, they're in the audience and they're making that connection. So we're giving a lot of exposure to businesses that way.
Okay, so tell us some of the other types of ways that the chamber markets. I mean, there are so many. I had a chance to look at the website. It's a very robust chamber. It really is. So you have a newsletter, for example, that has over 4,000 subscribers.
Yes.
And, anything in particular about the newsletter that the viewers need to know about?
So the newsletter comes out every Friday morning. We push it out. As you said, it's about 4,000 individuals that it gets pushed out to. And it's not just the business world, but we have community leaders, elected officials. They're all part of that email distribution. And in that newsletter, we're touching on those 4 pillars. So, we're giving business intel to our businesses. We're talking about opportunities where they can go connect and network, whether it's an event that we're having, an event our partner is having, an event that another business is having. It's all about making sure our businesses know what's going on in the region. As it's all about building that community. I told you that cycle of life.
Yes,
so that newsletter is one of our main vehicles to really push out information. And we want to make sure that we're consistent. So we're doing it every Friday morning. And, we also will spotlight businesses. We have new members that come, and we'll spotlight them and say, hey, we have this new business. This is what they do. This is how they do it. We encourage you to go and look at their website.
C-Suite on Your Street also aims to provide useful information as you are building your business. And in the following clips, we do just that, specifically providing guidance on selecting a business structure, staffing your business, and even choosing a commercial office space. So let's talk about some of the common business structures that entrepreneurs can choose from. Let's start with the sole proprietorship business structure. Tell us what this structure is.
Okay, well, a sole proprietorship, it's very common, and it's really easy because it's a simple and most common structure. It's an unincorporated business owned by a single individual. And there is no distinction between you and the business. Again, we'll get into liability in a moment. But you, as the proprietor, the sole proprietor, are entitled to all profits, but you're also responsible for all the business debts.
Right.
Yes.
Now let's talk about partnership. Now there are, I guess, 2 primary types of partnership, general and limited, but let's talk specifically about general partnerships.
There are actually a couple other types of partnerships, but you're right. For general partnership is easy. It's like a sole proprietorship, but with more than one person. It's where 2 or more people share in ownership of the business. Each partner contributes to all aspects of the business, including money, property, labor, so forth. but each partner also shares in the profit and losses of the business.
All right, so let's talk about limited liability companies. This, again, is another common business structure, particularly among small businesses. Tell us about the limited liability company.
The limited liability company, or LLCs, as they're commonly called, it's a hybrid legal structure, and it provides limited liability features of a corporation, which we'll talk about in a moment, but it has the tax benefits and operational flexibility of a partnership.
Let's talk about stock corporations.
Absolutely. As you said, it's the most general type of corporation, and it must have at least 3 officers, a president, secretary, and a treasurer, and at least 1 director. And it's owned by the shareholders, which may be individuals or other business entities.
So as we start this discussion, tell us a little about the 2 broad categories of hiring that organizations can choose from, the employee or the independent contractor.
Okay, so the employee as a W-2 contractor, or as a W-2 employee, or the independent contractor. So as a W-2, that employee is paid directly by you. You have to withhold all of their taxes. You may pay them benefits. You directly control everything that they do. So from the tasks that they do, when they do it, how they do it, pretty tight supervision and control. And they work only for you. As an independent contractor, there is none of that control. Okay, right. You may bring in a 1099, we tend just to call them for short. You may bring them in to work on a particular project for a defined period of time. In terms of payment, they should invoice you. So you're paying them as another vendor. You don't withhold any kind of taxes for them. You don't pay them any kind of benefits. And that's crucial because there are 3 real factors that you need to consider. You need to consider the relationship between the parties, the financial control, and then the actual work, the control of the work. So it really comes down to how much control do you provide to that person, either as an employee. The control is all with you as the employer. As a 1099, all you want to do is perhaps define the terms of the project, and then you allow the 1099 to work at their own, within whatever parameters that they have. There should be no control over when they do the work, how they do it. The only thing about payment is when they invoice you, then you pay them like you'd pay any other vendor. Right. But you really have to be careful that you categorize the worker correctly.
So you've told us about the commercial leases again, and then also the types of leases, but you say that there are 4 other factors that are important for small business owners to keep in mind as well, beyond the type of space and the type of lease. And the first one is the security deposit. Right. One of the 4 factors. Why is that something that those searching for a commercial office space ought to keep in mind?
If you've never had a commercial relationship, it's going to be important to understand that in the commercial world, the landlord gets to determine what type of security they want. So it's not traditional, like when you rent a house or an apartment, they typically ask for 1 month's rent. Okay? In the commercial world, they can ask for a personal guarantee. They can ask for several months' rent. Okay. I've seen people pay as much as 6 months' rent up front, based on the risks that the landlord or property owner had determined.
So a second factor that those searching for a commercial office space ought to consider is the assignment capabilities of the lease. Tell us a little bit about why that's important and what that means.
So in the retail space, there's a lot of different businesses that have turnover with employees or contractors. So we think about the hair salon business, we think about the massage business, we think about barbers, we think about any business that will bring on additional talent. And so you want to be able to have those folks join your practice, help grow your practice without having to redo a lease every time that happens. So having the ability to assign your lease gives you that flexibility. But the other piece is, if in fact your business is failing and you've been prompt on your rent and you want to have a real life conversation with your landlord which will allow you to reduce your liability. You want to have the ability to assign the lease to someone else that the landlord picks. You may bring them to the table, but the landlord will pick them and verify their credentials.
A third factor is the rent escalator. Tell us a little bit about that.
So again, when we look at typical residential leases, people think, well, you know, I'll do this 1-year lease and then we'll see what the rent is next month. And typically the rent, you know, either stays the same or it goes up by a nominal amount. Well, there are built-in escalators in the commercial leases, and the landlords want to make sure that they're being covered for increases in property taxes, insurance, vendor costs like trash removal. So those escalators can be as minute as 2%, but as high as 5% a year. So if you're signing up for a 5-year or a 10-year lease, those escalators can get you to a number that you may not be prepared for.
Right. And then the fourth factor that you suggested small business owners consider is termination privileges.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the thing that you want to be concerned of in the termination area is how much time, how much notice do you need to give the landlord? Because if the landlord says, I can terminate your lease in 30 days, how are you going to reorganize your business in 30 days?
Right.
So I believe in creating as long a runway as possible so you can have a termination notice that allows you to regroup if in fact the landlord decides to terminate you or you decide to terminate the lease.
In these final clips, our guests provide additional insights on promoting chiropractic care for your employees and using your voice as a business owner to help shape public policy. So when we talk about chiropractic care, why is this something that small business owners in particular need to be concerned about?
Very good question. Because a lot of employees, they're either sitting down for long periods of times or they're standing up for a long period of time, or they're in awkward body positions, such as if they're lifting and then twisting type of motion. So the main thing is to make sure that your employees are in proper position when they're performing certain activities.
Okay, and when you say proper position, what does that mean exactly?
All right, so basically to keep the spine neutral, and when the spine is neutral and supported by the muscles, it reduces excessive strain on the muscle tissues. You
provided some very low-cost ways that business owners can satisfy the needs of their employees while maintaining chiropractic care. So let's talk specifically about a desk. Like what are some of the things that business owners need to be concerned about for the desks that they have for their employees so that their chiropractic care is intact?
Okay, so if you already have a monitor and your monitor doesn't raise up, so something as simple as putting books underneath, to just elevating it at eye level would help.
So again, the screen of the top of the
top
screen?
of the screen should be at eye level.
At the employee's eye level.
Right, now if you're using something like a laptop, which is absolutely probably the worst thing to work on for prolonged periods of time, elevate the laptop and then just use a wireless keyboard.
So let's talk a little bit more about the legislative support piece. Again, we've talked about this a little bit when we were discussing why small business owners should care, but let's talk about specifically how, from the legislative perspective, you help small businesses have that seat at the table and their voice be heard.
Well, you know, one thing that I mentioned earlier was that, you know, small business owners running businesses is what you do best, right? Well, I have a passion for politics, and most government consultants do. And politics is what we do best. So, you know, there are ways that we can, number one, educate businesses on how to engage their elected officials, help them to get into the rooms that they need to be in, to talk to the right people, help them to be a part of the process. Maybe the legislature is going to create a work group to study, you know, certain small business issues. Well, you know, we can help to ensure that, you know, your small business or a representative of your community, your industry is a participant in the work group. You know, different things like that. And we also monitor legislation. We review it with our clients. We go over it. We explain it at a level that everyone can understand. And we help create a strategy for either working to support the legislation or even stop it if it, you know, negatively impacts your industry.
Okay. And one of the things, you know, from a more practical perspective is that you also can write letters for your clients and then perhaps even testimony and provide other types of intelligence, you know.
Right, yeah. So, you know, we're interacting with these elected officials every day, just like you and some of your counterparts are interacting with other small business executives on a daily basis. We interact with elected officials and the decision makers every day. We've built relationships. Right. And part of what you're doing when you bring on a consultant, a government relations consultant, is you have now expanded your network to the amount of relationships that consultant has as well. So we can make sure that you're at the table during the committee meetings, the committee hearings, help you draft that testimony, guide you on what the testimony should be like. You know, these elected officials are looking at thousands of bills a year. They don't want 10-page testimony. So, you know, we can help guide to make sure that you make the right points in a very succinct way and prepare you for that written and a verbal testimony, as well as make sure that you build those relationships that we have too, so that you can interact with those folks, so that when you go to the committee hearing and you're sitting at the table and you're testifying either in support or in opposition of the bill, the people sitting around at your senators and your delegates that are members of that committee, they know who you are because we've helped you build that relationship, which also helps you as a small business owner build credibility.
I hope that you've enjoyed this reflection of the first 10 episodes of C-Suite on Your Street. And thank you for being a part of our goal to share resources, tips, and tricks to help you operate and think like a CEO, wherever you are on your entrepreneurial journey. Please continue tuning in to learn more about how to start, run, and grow your small business. As you know, we close each episode with an inspirational quote. Earlier this month, I had the privilege of returning to my alma mater, Eleanor Roosevelt High School, to participate in their career day and share the joys of being a business owner. So in that spirit, I'd like to share a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." Take care.